7 bone-chilling horrors that haunt you forever, the shocking truth of these terrifying fates. The air was thick with dread as the sun slipped below the horizon, casting long, claw-like shadows across the old cemetery. Tales were whispered about the 7 cursed souls who roamed the earth, their fates twisted by dark magic and betrayal. For generations, the townsfolk avoided the cursed ground, fearing the restless spirits that could drag anyone into an abyss of despair. With their eyes wide and voices shaky, they spoke of the macabre, a woman who vanished without a trace after walking among the tombstones, a little boy found howling at the moon, his body frozen in horror, and the cries echoing from the shadows that left people paralyzed with panic. Each of these legends held a thread of truth, bubbling with mystery and macabre detail. The villagers recounted how the buried secrets of the past clawed back to the surface, gripping minds and hearts with icy fingers. Every hollow rustle of leaves amplified their fears, sending shivers down spines. What gruesome fate awaited those who dared to trespass on sacred ground? They whispered of the stench of decay that would suddenly permeate the air, a harbinger of doom, an invitation for the damned to come forth and claim another unsuspecting soul. Did you feel that? A voice broke through the tension, only to be silenced by an eerie stillness. A cold breeze stirred, carrying whispers that sent goosebumps crawling up skin. Students would dare each other to approach the cemetery, their laughter turning to nervous chuckles as they found the courage to step closer. They were drawn in by the thrill, only to turn and flee as a deafening silence descended, making their hearts pound in direct response. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The legends had taken on a life of their own, fueling dark storylines that dug deep into the fears buried within the human heart. One fateful night, a group of friends, high on bravado, decided to challenge the haunting tales. Fueled by horror movies and reckless ambition, they crafted plans to unearth hidden truths. What would they find in those shadowy depths? Would they face the wrath of the vengeful spirits? As they crossed through the rusted gate, the ground beneath them trembled as if the cemetery awoke from a long slumber. With each step, the weight of history pressed down, and the shadows seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of their own. They had crossed the threshold, but would they be brave enough to uncover the shocking truth, or would they become the next victims of the horrors that haunted these forgotten souls? The moment they stepped inside, darkness swallowed them whole. The air felt thick, charged with an energy they couldn't comprehend. The friends exchanged wide-eyed glances, their bravado evaporating as silence enveloped them, with only the distant rustling of leaves breaking the stillness. "Let us split up," Jake suggested, voice barely above a whisper. The others exchanged worried looks, but adrenaline pumped through their veins, emboldening them. They'd seen enough horror flicks to know the risks. They felt terrified, but there was also a thrill that tingled on the edge of their skin. "Fine. Just don't go far," said Mia, her voice quavering. Before long, the group ambled into the depths of the cemetery, under a lightless sky laden with oozing shadows. As they roamed, the tombstones loomed above, crumbling under years of neglect. Each inscription seemed to whisper secrets, pulling at the corners of their minds. Sarah stumbled upon a particularly ornate gravestone encrusted with moss, its carving of a weeping angel sending shivers down her spine. "I'm gonna take a picture," she said, carefully aiming her phone, but the bright light flickered unnervingly, producing only static noise. "Did you see that?" Jake shouted from nearby, startling everyone. They gathered around him, eyes darting nervously between the shadows. "I swear I saw someone moving over there," he pointed into the darkened thicket edging the cemetery. The woods felt alive, rustling as if something sinister stirred just out of sight. Let us get out of here. This is stupid, Mia urged. The chill creeping up her spine was now a full-on shudder. But before they could retreat, the air shifted, becoming heavy and suffocating. A cacophony of whispers swirled around them, a chorus of agony echoing through the graveyard, growing ever louder. Do you hear that? Sarah clutched her phone tight, its screen illuminating her face, but the light seemed to cast deeper shadows. Before they could respond, something shattered the silence. A chilling wail pierced the night. It was raw, desperate, devoid of human warmth. They froze, swept by a wave of panic. The realization hit them, this was no mere haunting. This was a warning. Run! Jake shouted, and they erupted into motion, hearts racing as they darted between the tombstones, their footsteps echoing against the cold stone. But the whispers morphed, turning into mocking laughter, taunting their fear, mixing with more wails that ghosted on the edges of their sanity. They ran blindly, adrenaline pumping through their veins, trying to find the gate. But nothing looked familiar. The world around them twisted and distorted. Each step they took felt like they were sinking deeper into darkness, an inescapable trap designed for those who dared disturb the grave. Suddenly, Mia paused, her breath hitching as she spotted movement in the shadows. I can't go on, she gasped, eyes wide with terror. The fear flared in her chest like a wildfire. Mia, no. We can't stop. Sarah grabbed her arm, pulling, but not before a shadowy figure emerged behind them, its breath a cold wind that chilled them to the bone. The friends screamed. Their voices blended into a cacophony of terror as the figure lunged forward. The last sound they heard was a bone-chilling laugh, and then everything went dark. The cemetery was silent again, eerily still, but the air crackled with expectation. The cursed souls stirred. Who would return to uncover the truth, or had they expanded the roster of the damned? What awaited them on the other side? Were they truly gone, or had they become part of the whispering shadows? The darkness lingered, suffocating and unyielding. When the light returned, it was not the starlit sky that greeted them. Instead, a dim, flickering glow hovered in the air, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally. Sarah blinked, disoriented. Confusion clouded her mind as she attempted to piece together the chaos that had ripped through the cemetery moments before. Instead of her friends, she found herself alone, standing atop a wet, crumbling grave. The once familiar chill of the night now felt trapped, like it had seeped into her bones. Mia? Jake, she called, her voice trembling but determined to pierce the silence. The only reply was the distant wailing growing louder, reverberating through the graveyard. Panic surged through her as she scanned the shadows, expectant but fearing what she would find. An uneasiness unfurled in her stomach when she noticed the gravestones. They weren't arranged like before. The epitaphs looked unfamiliar, names worn and unfamiliar yet hauntingly recognizable. Were they all carved in a language she couldn't grasp? Or were they memories of something lost, perhaps more than just time? Where are you guys? The question slipped through her lips like a prayer. Just as she contemplated her next move, she heard it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. They were heavy and deliberate, dragging along the ground like shackles. As she turned, dread pooled in her chest. The figure emerged from the thickets. It was tall and cloaked in shadows, its face hidden beneath a deep cowl. It moved with an unsettling fluidity, gliding toward her in complete silence. Fear surged anew, forcing Sarah to back away. Stay back! She shouted, her voice breaking but fierce. She braced herself for whatever would happen next, ready to run if that darkness lunged toward her. Then the cloaked figure stopped. A bone-chilling laugh erupted from beneath the cowl, resonating through the cemetery like a cruel echo, setting her heart racing even faster. Did you think you could escape? The voice was a whisper yet cut through her like frost. It felt as though dozens of voices spoke together, each dripping with malice. You took her from us, and we simply want her back. Who? Panic scraped the edges of her sanity. What are you talking about? In an instant, the figure raised a hand, and shadows pooled around it like tendrils of smoke, swirling until they formed a vivid image. Mia! Sarah gasped as she saw her friend, face pale, her body encircled by wraith-like figures, all with hollow eyes staring straight into the camera of Sarah's phone. They looked lost, disoriented, and full of despair. "Help! Sarah!" Mia's voice pierced through the illusion, fragmented but unmistakable. "You have to find us. Where are you?" Sarah cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "I'll get you out." But the vision blurred, the shadows swirling back into the wraith's grasp, swallowed whole by the darkness with a soul-crushing finality. The laughter erupted again, and with it, shadows circled around Sarah, inching closer. She could feel them wrapping around her like icy fingers. They were hungry, fierce, and relentless. Her pulse thudded in her ears as she stumbled backward, desperate to break free from their grasp. Just when it felt her life might slip away, a soft glow appeared before her. Could it be hope? Or was it another trick? "Run!" A voice echoed through the cemetery, powerful and clear. It wasn't Mia or Jake. It sounded familiar, but Sarah could barely comprehend it as shadows converged. "Where are you?" she shouted, clenching her fists, feeling the weight of despair. The shadows recoiled at the voice, hesitating for a moment, and in that precious moment, she darted towards the glow. The cemetery stretched impossibly, the path shifting beneath her feet, but she pressed on, determined to piece together the fragments of the night. But as Sarah stepped into the light, she braced for what she might uncover. Was freedom on the other side, or would she find herself trapped in the deeper shadows, and what awaited her next? The deeper she ventured, the more she felt the pull towards that haunting laughter. Would she dare confront the darkness, and what would it cost her to reclaim her friends? The glow enveloped her like warmth after a long winter, bringing a flicker of hope. Sarah stumbled forward, her heart hammering in her chest, the shadows retreating ever so slightly. But just as she reached the edge of the light, it pulsed, flickering like a dying ember, and the laughter echoed around her once more, a cruel reminder that the darkness wasn't too far behind. "Keep moving." A voice cried from the edges of her memory, reliable, urgent. It pushed her onward, urging her to escape the grip of despair. She squinted, trying to make out any details in the shimmering light ahead. But the glow began to flicker, diminishing under the weight of the encroaching shadows. Panic rose in her throat. "Please, no, not now." She fought the urge to look back, knowing the figure was lingering, waiting to reclaim her. With every step, she could feel the tension in the air shifting, thickening with dread. Suddenly, two figures emerged from beyond the glow, slouched and disheveled, their faces obscured by a veil of darkness. Her breath caught as she recognized the profiles of her friends. It was Jake and Mia, but they looked wrong. Their skin was pallid, their eyes sunken. They weren't just trapped, they appeared changed, spectral versions of themselves, and the despair woven within their features twisted her insides. "Mia? Jake?" Sarah's voice trembled, laced with fear and disbelief. "Is it really you? We have to go back." Jake shouted, his voice strained and desperate. "It's coming for all of us. You need to run." "No." Mia interjected, her voice stronger but tinged with panic. "Don't leave us. It wants you to flee, to think you're safe." Her gaze, haunting, bore into Sarah's soul. "You can't trust it. You have to fight." But fight what? She felt terror gnawing at her insides. Sarah watched helplessly as shadows danced around them, whispering in a language foreign to her ears, pressing tighter around her friends. The figures glanced around as if sensing the malevolent force approaching. They needed to break free from this nightmare, and yet here they were, bound by something dark. "I want to leave you," Sarah cried, desperation fueling her resolve. "I can help. Just hold on." A shrill laugh burst from the shadows, chilling her to the core. The cloaked figure appeared between Sarah and her friends, its eyes glinting like shards of ice. "Your valiant effort is admirable," it hissed, its voice layered with tainted echoes. "But the more you fight," it gestured, and the ground shuddered with dark energy. "The more you doom them." Sarah's heart raced. She felt trapped in a web of darkness, an ever-tightening noose looping around her. "I won't give in," she declared, clenching her fists. "You won't take us." Her friends' shadows flickered, hesitation rippling through Mia and Jake. "Sarah." Their voices collided with urgency, but it was no longer only her that they feared. Something shifted within her, a spark igniting as she focused on the glowing embrace. "Together!" Sarah shouted, extending her hands toward Mia and Jake. "We can fight this. We have to believe." As their hands reached out, strands of light began to weave in and around them, battling against the encroaching darkness. Sarah felt a surge of energy, warmth flowing through her veins, pushing the shadows back inch by inch. But the figure only laughed, the sound splintering the air. "You think mere light can save you?" it taunted, the shadows swirling more violently, slashing through the glow. The laughter echoed fiercely, a mocking battle cry that sent shivers up Sarah's spine. For every inch they gained, the darkness retaliated with a wave of disorienting despair. What had they awakened? The boundary between light and dark began to blur, and Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest. What if fighting only made it worse? Would she inadvertently drag Mia and Jake deeper into the abyss? Just as shadows wrapped around her legs, yanking her down, she heard it again, the same soft, distant glow calling out, and with it, an understanding sparked. She needed to harness the darkness to find a way out. But at what cost? She had to choose. A bone-chilling wind gusted, carrying with it the maddening laughter, whispering, tempting, promising everything she desired if she would just surrender. In that terrifying moment, Sarah realized one undeniable truth: sometimes, the ones you love are lost not to darkness, but to the choices you make. Would she hold on to the light, or would she give in to the shadows? The shadows clawed at Sarah, fierce tendrils wrapping around her until her skin prickled. Her heart raced, a wild drum echoing in her ears, drowning out the mocking laughter that filled the dark. Panic threatened to consume her, but somewhere in the chaos, she felt that pull, the calling of light that promised hope, demanding she choose. "Don't let it win." Mia's voice pierced through the haze of despair, a desperate plea that ignited Sarah's resolve. But it was a tug-of-war she didn't know how to win. "Fight!" Jake shouted, his eyes glinting, standing as a beacon against the encroaching night. "We're right here. Take our hands." Sarah's breath hitched as she gazed at her friends, their forms flickering at the edge of reality. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also a sliver of something else: hope. It chilled her to think how close they were to being lost forever. They had no time to waste. "Together!" she shouted, the words tearing from her throat with raw desperation. She focused on their hands, they needed to hold tight. The energy surged, a current that ignited the air between them. The light around them brightened as they touched, creating a small orb of hope amidst the looming darkness. In that moment, the laughter receded, turning into whispers, hesitant and uncertain. For a heartbeat, it felt as if they were winning. The shadows shrank back, recoiling as the orb pulsated with warmth and strength. But then it came, an earth-shattering roar that reverberated deep within, soaking through any defenses they had built. The cloaked figure lunged forward, its face contorted in rage, eyes now burning like hot coals. "You cannot escape me!" it shrieked, and the shadows erupted like a storm, crashing against the light. Sarah's grip faltered. Doubt seeped in, gnawing away at her determination. What was the dark thing planning? What if this was merely another trick to draw her in deeper? Desperation clawed at her gut as she felt her energy waning, fraying at the edges. "Stay with me," Sarah panted, eyes darting between Mia and Jake, their shadows flickering like dying stars. "We can't give up, not now." Mia squeezed her hand tight. "You have to trust us. We're stronger together." The intensity of her gaze burned through the cloud of doubt. Sarah took a deep breath, summoning what little courage she had left. "Okay. Together." She shouted once more, but this time her voice contained a steely resolve that shone through the cracks of uncertainty. In response, the orb of light expanded, a blinding column pushing against the shadows. The darkness hissed, recoiling in a frenzy. Echoes of anguished cries twisted in the air as the figure's form distorted in the light, revealing its true nature, a grotesque visage that shifted as if it were made of shadow itself. "Don't look at it!" Jake yelled, and the trio closed their eyes, focusing on the bond they shared. They couldn't let fear invade their hearts. With each pulse of their combined strength, the flickering glow spread. Embracing it meant confronting the eerie void that promised despair. It took everything to stand firm. Sarah felt her legs tremble, the laughter returned, louder now, mingling with the cries of her friends. It was a cacophony, a clash between light and dark, a whirlwind of chaos that threatened to rip them apart. And in the eye of that storm, she felt it, a flicker of realization that shook her to her core. "Don't you see?" the figure roared, voice dripping with malice. "You're just as trapped as I am. The darkness will always snare you." Sarah's eyes flew open. Maybe that was the key. What if the cloak of shadows that threatened to overwhelm them could be transformed? What if embracing the darkness could provide the answers she needed to escape? The laughter filled the air again, a shrill, triumphant sound. Sarah felt a surge of defiance. "No!" she shouted, a fervor igniting within her soul. "You're wrong. I won't succumb to you. We can change. We can be free." As the anger surged, colors exploded in her mind, shards of light shifting and blending. She pushed against the edges of darkness, feeling something real and raw erupt within her, forging a path through the chaos. But then, she hesitated, doubt creeping back like a slow fog. What kind of power was she about to unleash? What if it spiraled out of control? The shadows beckoned her closer, whispering promises of freedom and power. With a final pulse of light and an anguished scream, Sarah stood on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. What if she unleashed something even greater, something that could destroy them all? "Choose carefully, Sarah," the darkness murmured, seductive and enticing, "or you might condemn not just yourself but everything and everyone you hold dear." And in that moment, with the fate of her friends hanging in the balance, the question burned hotter than ever: which darkness would she embrace? The shadows quivered, swirling like smoke at her feet, tightening their grip. Sarah fought to keep her focus, her heart pounding with a rhythm that felt like thunder. There was so much at stake. The darkness whispered sweetly, promising her power, promising freedom if she would only take a step forward. Could she trust it? Would giving in mean losing herself? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Images flooded her mind, memories of laughter with Mia and Jake, light spilling into their lives like dawn through the trees. She couldn't let that fade. Not now, not ever. "Stay centered," Mia urged, her voice trembling yet resolute. "Focus on the light. Remember what we're fighting for. Together." Jake echoed, squeezing Sarah's hand with a desperation that anchored her. With each breath, Sarah felt the energy between them swell. The orb shimmered brighter, radiating warmth. For a moment, it held back the shadows, pushing them away. But the roar of the figure grew more chaotic, a terrifying symphony of despair that clawed at their minds. "You think you can escape," it taunted, the voice twisting into a growl that sent chills racing through her bones. "You're bound by your own fear. That is your true prison. Don't listen." Mia shouted, but terror crept into their bond, a chain threatening to break them apart. No. Sarah couldn't succumb to panic. She had to believe in the power they shared, even as doubt wrapped around her like ivy, squeezing tighter. "We can turn this power against it," she cried, the words spilling from her as though ignited by fire. Focusing on the warmth of her friend's hands, she felt a surge, a pulse of light radiating from their unity. It felt unbreakable. They wouldn't let the darkness shatter them. She thought of everything that mattered, dreams, laughter, smiles, and the bonds that connected them all, and then something shifted deep within her. I will not allow you to control us. She shouted, voice ringing like a bell, clear in the chaos. We're stronger together. And in that moment, a flash of intuition sparked. The darkness was powerful, yes, but it thrived on fear and division. Maybe that was the key: understanding and integrating the darkness, not fighting it blindly. If she embraced her fear instead of rejecting it, could it transform into strength? The shadows writhed as if sensing her shift in perspective. Embrace me. You'll find the power you seek. The figure distorted, flickering in the light, a roiling black mass desperately clawing toward her. Sarah took a breath, feeling raw courage pulse through her veins. I'll embrace the shadows. She yelled, and the light around her flared, glowing fiercely as she explored the edges of her fear, pulling from its depths instead of fleeing. A wave of energy smashed through the air, the orb pulsing bright like a supernova. It was exhilarating, wild. The darkness writhed, keening, and for the first time, Sarah felt its resolve falter. It was threatening them, but now they threatened it back. But then, with a horrific howl, the figure lunged forward, erupting in a storm of shadow that crashed against their light. Sarah gasped as the force slammed into her like a freight train, pushing her back, ripping them apart. Jake was screaming, Mia's face twisted in terror. It felt like the very ground beneath her was crumbling. Hold on. She screamed, fighting against the tide of dark energy. But the figure laughed, a sound that pierced through her ears. You think you can win? There is no hope. Only despair. And as the shadows engulfed her friends, the pressure of choice crashed down on Sarah again. Was she really ready to confront the darkness within, risking everything? If she transformed the fear into strength, would it work, or would it consume them all? Sarah stood at the edge of decision, her heart racing. Which darkness would take hold? Before she could weigh the consequences, the shadows surged, pulling her closer to the brink. Will you become one with me, it hissed, or will you choose to destroy all you hold dear? With her friends fading from view, the storm unrelenting, Sarah stood ready to face the most horrendous truth yet. What part of the darkness would she allow to set her free? The shadows surged, a crushing weight that pressed against Sarah's chest. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to run back to the warmth and safety of the light. But the figures of Mia and Jake, ghostly apparitions now, fading with each shuddering breath, anchored her to the moment. She couldn't lose them. Not like this. Fight. Please. Jake's voice cracked, desperation spilling into the air like smoke, mingling with the chaos. Each syllable was a dagger, cutting through the fog of doubt that encircled her mind. Mia's eyes were wide, glistening with unshed tears. Sarah, you're stronger than this. We believe in you. For a fleeting instant, the shadows shimmered, revealing the faces of her friends behind a veil of terror. Their faith illuminated a pathway through the oppressive darkness. Sarah took a step back, feeling the orb around them pulse, sending a tingling sensation through her hands. Embrace the fear, she whispered to herself, her voice barely above the tempest that surrounded her. It's a part of me. A screech erupted from the shadows as if acknowledging her acceptance. The figure morphed, swirling into a visage that twisted into her worst nightmares: loss, betrayal, loneliness. The sight twisted deep into her soul, but Sarah held firm. I will not let you win. The energy surged again, a ripple that coursed through her, fueled by the light that connected her to Jake and Mia. Let us do this together. She shouted, and they squeezed her hands tightly. Together, they formed a united front, a barrier of brilliance against the encroaching dark. The orb flared, enveloping them like a protective cocoon. The darkness howled in frustration, straining against the light that held it back. Fight with me. She commanded, looking at her friends. Tap into everything we've shared. They nodded, and Sarah felt their energies merge into something greater. The shared memories ignited laughter around a dinner table, quiet midnight talks, joyous celebrations. With each recollection, the light expanded, a blazing sun against the evening sky, momentarily pushing back the shadows, but the figure lurched forward again, hurling its presence in a chaotic wave. The orb faltered, cracks seamed through the brightness. An anguished scream erupted, drowning out all hope, and the light dimmed dangerously low. "Focus!" Mia shouted, her resolve unwavering even as fear gripped her voice. "Remember our bond, Sarah. We can't break. Trust me." Jake added, his brow furrowed in concentration. With their voices harmonizing, the light flickered defiantly, as if refusing to be extinguished. Sarah's heart raced as she reached deep within herself, summoning every ounce of love and strength. "I choose hope, I choose you." The walls of shadows recoiled slightly, a twitch, a flicker of uncertainty filling the dark. "Hope?" The figure hissed, a sound like nails on glass, clawing through the air. "Hope is for the weak." "No!" They shouted in unison, matching the ferocity in their hearts. The message resonated, amplifying the orb, and the shadows twisted, flailing in a desperate attempt to escape. But as the fear swelled, Sarah's hands tremored, uncertain if this would be enough. The shadows pulled, almost inviting her to surrender, promising to deliver her from the suffering of this fight. "Don't lose sight," Mia urged, her voice trembling. "What awaits us is brighter than anything dark." Sarah clenched her jaw, eyes wide with determination as she battled the temptation to succumb. But how could she ever trust this darkness? Would it truly grant her freedom or drag her down into despair? Will this be the end? She thought, every fiber in her body screaming against the darkness threatening to swallow her whole. And just then, a silent promise flickered within her, a chance to rise, or a fall that could take everything. The storm brewed, the final choice looming heavy in the air, but which path would she choose? The shadows roared, hungry and insatiable, clawing at the edges of the orb with a relentless fury. The light flickered, but Sarah steadfastly stretched her arms, willed her heart to beat with hope. Intense energy radiated from her friends, swirling around them, illuminating the encroaching darkness. "Stay with me," she yelled, her voice a beacon. The anxiety that coiled tightly in her chest transformed into something fierce and determined. With every search for strength, the memories surged more vividly, hilarious adventures, shared dreams, unbreakable bonds. It was more than just survival, it was about love, about the lives they had intertwined. Suddenly, from the heart of the shadow, a tendril shot forward like a snake, wrapping around Sarah's ankle. Panic flashed in her mind as icy dread chilled her veins. It yanked, pulling her toward the abyss, the whispers hissing promises of solace and escape from the throbbing pain of fear. "Let go!" Jake shouted, squeezing her hand further, his grip an anchor. But the tension between hope and despair played out like a taut rope, and it frayed with each second. "Your doubts," the dark figure sneered, voice dripping like venom. "I can taste them. Just embrace the fate that awaits you, it's so much easier." Sarah squeezed her eyes shut for a heartbeat, drowning out the evil whisper. "I've faced worse," she muttered, a pact with herself. "I've lost almost everything, and I refuse to lose them." With that, a pulse of adrenaline surged through her. She reached deep, cable-thick threads of love and strength weaving around her like a warm blanket. The shadows recoiled slightly, momentarily distracted by her fierce defiance. "Light is power," she cried, and the orb brightened as if absorbing her conviction. Mia and Jake, spirits steeled by Sarah's resolve, locked their eyes on the shadowy fiend with fierce determination. "We're stronger together," Mia added, her voice cutting through the darkness like a knife, but the shadows weren't finished. They twisted, convulsed, and exploded outward, sending chilling tendrils in all directions. One lashed against Mia, sending her staggering back, gasping. "Mia!" Sarah shouted, horrified, the light flickering again. The orb dimmed, like a candle struggling against a gust of wind. No. But Mia's laughter pierced through, a sweet melody that echoed amidst the chaos. You won't break this. You love me too much. Sarah's heart swelled. Love clashed violently against the despair trying to suffocate her. Mia only needed to remember that they fought together. That was the truth. Find your light, Mia. Sarah urged, keeping her grip on Jake tight. Breathe. With that, they channeled every ounce of their collective love into the orb. A radiant burst of energy surrounded them, and the darkness flinched backward, singeing beneath the fire of their shared spirits, but the moment was fleeting. The shadow figure roared, shaking the very core of their resolve. You think you can defy me? It thundered, its voice booming like thunder crackling through a storm. You think love can shield you from your deepest fears? A wave of doubt washed over Sarah. The warmth of the orb waned as shadows clawed inwards. She felt it, the weight creeping back in, invasive, seeping into her heart. Instinct kicked in, a flicker of survival. No! Sarah yelled, her voice cracking under the strain of the surging shadows. I stand against you. I choose them. I choose us. With a final push, the light flared further, each tremor of her heart echoing through the orb. But the shadows lashed back one last time, swirling with unstoppable force, engulfing them in a tempest of despair, and then, an ear-splitting silence fell. Sarah opened her eyes, breathlessly scanning her friends. They were fading fast. Stay with me. She screamed, but the shadows coiled tighter, a noose of despair tightening around their bond. The darkness loomed, a monstrous presence pulsating with raw power. Sarah felt vertigo set in, but deep down, a spark ignited. What if this was not just a desperate battle against shadows? What if it was a chance to truly discover what they were made of? But time was running short. The shadows whispered low, sending icy chills skidding down her spine. What lay beyond the darkness? Would they find a path to safety together, or would doubt drown out the light forever? The storm raged on, but Sarah knew one thing: she wouldn't go down without a fight. What would they sacrifice to face the ultimate truth lurking within the chaos? The void swallowed them, silence so deep it felt thick, like cold syrup in their lungs. Sarah's heart pounded steadily, but dread gnawed at her insides. She couldn't shake the feeling of being on the cusp of something monumental yet terrifying. Okay, think. She raged inside her mind. They had just fought back the shadows, but they weren't gone. They lingered, wrapping around them like a second skin, suffocating and relentless. She glanced at Jake. His face was pale, his eyes wide but focused. Then there was Mia, just a breath away, her expression teetering between fear and courage. Can you feel it? Mia whispered, her voice trembling. It's as if they're waiting for us to break. Don't you dare give in. Jake barked, the fire in his eyes igniting a flicker of hope in Sarah. We've been through worse. We're not alone. Sarah shouted, her tone fierce, commanding. Remember, we have each other. Then, a sudden flash of light erupted from the orb, illuminating the void momentarily. Shadows scurried back like roaches fleeing from daylight, but they weren't defeated. An ominous laughter echoed around them, dark and mocking, washing over them like ice water. How quaint, the dark figure drawled, its voice slithering through the shadows, taunting. You think bonds of love can save you? In the end, you're merely flesh waiting to crumble. Sarah fought her impulse to shudder. Now is not the time for doubt. We've beat these monsters before. She exclaimed, trying to rally her friends. We just need to dig deeper. A surge of energy sparked within. She recalled moments when they laughed until they cried, when they fought to protect one another. Those memories became the fuel they needed. If only they could tap into that strength together. But just as she lunged for hope, a dark tendril lashed out, slicing through the air and striking Jake hard in the chest. He staggered back, gasping, pain lacing his features. Panic gripped Sarah's throat, but she pushed it down. "Jake!" she cried, reaching toward him, her heart crashing around her ribs. "I'm fine," he grunted, determination flickering amidst the pain. "But we need to focus. Don't let it break us." As if in response, the shadows surged forth, caressing her like venomous fingers, sowing seeds of doubt. "They'll betray you. They can't survive this." "No!" Sarah shouted. "You're wrong. Love doesn't break, it transforms." With each word, she felt warmth surging up from within, filling her with light, chasing the shadows back just a little further. "Together," Mia echoed, stepping forward. "Let us stand up to this." The trio joined hands, forming an unbreakable circle. In that moment of unity, Sarah felt an electric pulse. An undeniable force wrapped around them. Stories of courage and survival merged into something greater. The shadows recoiled as she brought forth a memory, strong and vivid. "Remember when we stood up to those bullies at school?" she started, her voice blending with Jake's and Mia's. "They were scared of us, not the other way around." Their memories became an anthem, resonating through the void, manifesting into a radiant light that throbbed with life. The orb brightened with their shared power, glimmering with every ounce of their love. But just as they thought they had the upper hand, the laughter returned, mocking them all over again. "What fools you are! You think love can conquer the darkness?" The shadow figure surged forward, expansion and collapse blurring together in a whirlwind of dreadful enchantment. Sarah felt the shadows clutch at her throat once more, squeezing until breaths became shallow. As darkness threatened to consume them all, she understood they were at a tipping point, their foundation crumbling beneath the weight of terror and doubt. "Fight it, Sarah." Jake's voice, though strained, rang out like a lifeline, and then came the startling truth, a revelation so shocking it swept over them like ice water. She realized that the darkness within them was just as formidable. Could love truly stand against fear? Could they face the shadows lurking in their hearts, the unseen terror that whispered of betrayal? Sarah roared against the crushing despair, "We will not break. We'll face our truth together." And as the shadows twisted impossibly around them, she braced for what was to come, knowing it could shatter everything they were. But what hidden horrors lay within? What truths would they have to face to truly conquer the darkness? The shadows twisted and writhed, a symphony of agony. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the darkness pressing in around them, clawing at her resolve. But amid the chaos, a singular thought anchored her. This was not just a battle against something external. This was a confrontation with her deepest fears, and she was not alone. "Mia! Jake!" she roared, desperation laced with determination. "We can do this. Together." Their hands tightened around each other, and as they formed their circle, the memories of love, laughter, and bravery flooded back, suffusing them with a radiant warmth. They had faced trials before, and they had emerged stronger. "Remember our camping trip?" she shouted, her voice rising against the menacing laughter. "Remember how we scared off that bear together?" That memory sparked something inside like a wildfire, igniting the light surrounding them. "If we can face a bear, we can definitely face this," Jake shouted, a flicker of his usual bravado returning. "Yes," Mia yelled, her spirit ignited. "That bear didn't stand a chance because we stood together." And with that, as if the universe was urging them on, the orb surrounding them pulsated with fresh energy, pushing back against the shadows. The cloaked figure shrieked, a monstrous echo blending with the wind. "You fools! Your memories are powerless here. You will all succumb to despair." But the shadows writhed, struggling against their united front. It was as if the figure could sense the bond strengthening, could feel the air shift. "Don't listen," Sarah yelled over the chaos. "In the face of despair, we are stronger. This darkness doesn't define us." The moment the cloaked figure lunged, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline seize her. Let it come. We will not submit. The ground beneath them trembled, shadows reaching, grasping, but their combined power pushed back harder, illuminating their path. Together. They shouted, energy swirling around them, creating a barrier of light. It felt like an indestructible force, wielding the combined weight of their memories and hopes. The figure hesitated for just a moment, confusion flickering in its dark eyes. It wasn't used to being challenged. They were no longer prey. They were warriors. Fear breeds shadows, Sarah asserted, her voice striking through the tension like a blade. But hope brings light. We've discovered the truth. Mia's eyes sparkled, her spirit soaring. We might not always be perfect, but we can always fight to overcome. We refuse to give in. And with that, the light exploded outward, spilling into the darkness, burning the shadows that tried to consume them. The laughter of the cloaked figure turned to rage, a furious howl that reverberated through the air, shaking the very fabric of the graveyard. Shadows clawed at the edges of their light. You will suffer for this. Your souls will be mine. But Sarah didn't flinch. We are not your prey. She shouted, focused and resolute. Your power stems from our fear, and we choose love. The orb expanded, a blinding beacon that swallowed the very essence of doubt and despair. Flames of light roared around them, illuminating every hidden fear. In that radiant moment, Sarah felt strength envelop them, a blast of collective energy surging forth. What is happening? The figure screeched, its voice splintering into pieces. No. You cannot. I will consume all of you. No, you won't. Jake shouted defiantly, squeezing Sarah's hand tighter. The pulsing brilliance grew until it became a star, surging through the darkness. We are free. Mia declared, conviction echoing in her voice. And you will be banished. The shadows screamed. The figure writhed like a marionette with severed strings, and with one final push, their combined light burst forth, engulfing the malevolence. The void shuddered, shadows collapsing in on themselves, consumed by the radiant glow of their bond. With one last, horrifying shriek, the darkness dissipated, scattering like ashes in the wind. The graveyard fell silent. They found themselves breathless in that space between light and dark, the thrill of victory coursing through their veins. Fear had tested them, but it had not claimed them. Did we win? Sarah whispered, her voice shaking, still on edge. Mia and Jake nodded in unison, smiles breaking through the remnants of fear. We did it. Jake shouted, excitement bubbling forth. As the dawn's first light broke through the trees, they collapsed into each other's arms, laughter mingling with relief. The once tense weight upon their shoulders transformed into a shared warmth. We're okay, Mia said, tears glistening. Together, we're unstoppable. Sarah looked at them, heart full. We will always be okay. No matter what comes. In that moment, as the sun rose to bathe the cemetery in soft, golden light, they felt the weight of their fates beginning to fade. The past horrors had been unmasked, defeated through courage and unity. No longer mere victims, they were warriors bound by love. They stepped forward, leaving behind the darkness, holding on to the hope and strength that would propel them through whatever lay ahead. A new day dawned, not just for the world outside, but for the friendships intertwined in triumph. Shadows might linger, but they had learned that courage was only a heartbeat away. As they crossed the threshold back to the living, the cemetery behind them seemed less ominous, echoes of laughter replacing the frightening whispers. This was not just an ending. This was the beginning of a life woven with courage, truth, and unbreakable bonds. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive story that will grab your heart and soul. Smash that like button to help feed the algorithm. And flood the comments below. I want to hear your theories about our survival and how we conquered darkness together. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowered conclusion. Show your support for this community. We can do this together.